Hello, I'm Brent Height, and welcome back to Brent Height Outdoors. Today, I'll be sharing episode 2 of my Israel and Jordan trip. In episode 1, we landed in Tel Aviv, we went to Nazareth, we went to Tiberias, and we ended up at Gilgal Rephaim in the Golan Heights. So if you didn't catch that episode, I'll put a link in the description below. But as for now, let's roll with episode 2. So the next leg of the trip took us up a windy road up on top of a mountain somewhere in northern Israel and just south of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is the highest mountain in Israel, boasting majestic snow-capped peaks rising 9,000 feet above sea level. The mountain range is about 30 miles long, it's about 15 miles wide, and it's located on the northeastern border of Israel between Syria and Lebanon. Mount Hermon was significant in the Bible for a few reasons. It marked the northern boundary of the Promised Land conquered by Joshua, as mentioned in Deuteronomy 3:8 and Joshua 11:17. This mountain also served as the northern boundary of the land that was inherited by the half-tribe of Manasseh, as listed in 1 Chronicles 5:23. Mount Hermon is also a candidate to be the Mount of Transfiguration, although it is more commonly thought that it was Mount Tabor, as we mentioned in episode 1. And lastly, Mount Hermon, in the apocryphal book of Enoch, was the supposed place where the Watcher class of angels descended to earth in the days of Jared. Today, Mount Hermon is known by its Arabic name, which is Jebel el-Shaikh, meaning snowy mountain. On the way to our next location, we were able to catch a glimpse of Nimrod's castle. This castle, or fortress, is situated on the southeastern slopes of Mount Hermon on a ridge rising about 800 meters above sea level. It overlooks the Golan Heights and was built with the purpose of guarding a major access route to Damascus against armies coming from the west. Caesarea Philippi is an interesting place situated about 25 miles north of the Sea of Galilee and at the base of Mount Hermon. Snowmelt from Mount Hermon and a spring at this location contributes greatly to the headwaters of the Jordan River. The abundant water supply made this an attractive area, and several religious temples were built during the Hellenistic and Roman periods. At one time, the name of this place was Paneas, and there was a temple here built to the god Pan. Some scholars believe that the cave here at the Temple of Pan was known as the Gate to the Underworld, or the Gates of Hell. Human sacrifice most likely took place on this altar in the cave. Some scholars theorize that this is the place where Jesus said in Matthew 16:18, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Excavations here are still ongoing today, and artifacts continue to rise to prove the validity of old ancient documents, including the things that are written in the Holy Bible. So on the way back to the hotel, we ran into a little bit of protest, and our guide tried to explain a little bit about what was going on.
How sensitive the Israelis are. They have a feeling that something bad is happening for our democracy. Yeah. So okay, bye-bye, thank you very much. You see, non-violent. Yeah, but the police helps, of course. But you know, it's not violent. It's not violent. People are afraid. Look, you have to understand something. That our country, I'm sure you care about your country no less than we do. I mean, I understand that. You're America and you're proud. And you played a lot of blood also. You had a terrible civil war as well. You went a difficult way to be where you are.
We made it back to the hotel, and after a good night's sleep, we woke up to watch another Sea of Galilee sunrise. Getting ready to watch the sunrise over the Sea of Galilee. Got some pigeons that are looking for a handout. And our first stop on this particular day was Capernaum. In biblical times, Capernaum was one of the main trading villages in the area. It was vibrant and prosperous and home to about 1,500 people, many of whom were fishermen. Many travelers, caravans, and traders passed through Capernaum. It was the main trade route connecting Damascus in the north and Egypt to the south. The village was thought to have prospered between the 2nd century BC until the 13th century AD, when it was reverted back to a simple fishing village until the 1800s. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, brought up in Nazareth, and preached in Jerusalem, but it was his significant Galilean years that he spent in Capernaum. Jesus performed many miracles here, and it was here where he met James, John, Peter, Andrew, all fishermen, and Mark, the tax collector, 5 as his future disciples. The late establishment of this town explains why Capernaum is not mentioned in the Old Testament. So we're entering the synagogue at Capernaum. And this is a place where Jesus healed a man and was ridiculed because they were offended that he healed a man in the synagogue.
Now, this is where I love to see a different side of Jesus, because oftentimes we emasculate Jesus in many ways to be Jesus just pats the little kid on the cheek, and we forget that he is Lord, and he is gentle and he is humble, but he also is Lord, and he sets the tone. Many times, if you just read Matthew 23, which is the end of his ministry, when he just scolds and excoriates the Pharisees, calls them sons of hell and for their hypocrisy and other things. But if you notice, that's not Jesus at the beginning. That's after 3 years of, finally he said, you know what? I've given 3 years, and this is what you see.
There were lots of artifacts to look at Capernaum, but one thing important to note is if you'll look at this foundation, notice that the lower level is darker. That's the older level. That's the level in the time of Jesus. These other standing columns and the place that we are walking in now was built at a later date after the time of Jesus. And in the next clip, our guide talks about the 2 layers and the foundation that Jesus would have stood on.
How they should do it. You see, this is the floor of the synagogue where Jesus came and healed people. This is the original Jesus time floor. Look, those stones. You see?
So next to the synagogue, there was the ruins of some old housing, and our guide explains a little bit about that in the next clip.
Okay, so you can see that the synagogue is a little bit uphill. Can you see it's in the highest point? It's not dramatically high, but even a few meters, 6-8 meters, above the rest of the village. You can see there is a gap, a few meters between the synagogue and the houses. Now take a look at the houses. There was no wall here to protect Capernaum. The wall that you see over there is not original. In order to feel more secure, they built one house attached to the other. One family lived here, another family here, another one in the next room. So very, very close one to another. You can see the material stone is the basalt, the lava rocks that we saw yesterday all day long. Just imagine yourself the conditions of the heat here in the summer. From June to September, you know, you are under those rocks. It's so hot, and also during the night, because the stones absorb the heat and release it probably, and they cannot sleep on the roofs. The roof was not from stones. It was like a wooden roof. Maybe they slept outside. They had a terrible heat problem here in the summer. And you remember there was the healing of the cripple. Healing of the cripple, when we read the healing, we saw that they had to enter him from the roof. Just look at the village. You can see, imagine yourself, people gather in one particular house. You cannot move. It's like a maze. You cannot move anywhere. So that's why they had to bring him from the roof. You can see this is the authentic village. You are looking at Capernaum, the way it looked 2,000 years ago during Jesus' time.
So next to the houses that our guide just showed us is another house that has an observation building built over the top of it. This house gets special attention because they believe that it belonged to the Apostle Peter. So therefore, they've built a shelter over the top to protect it, and you can go inside the building and you can look down upon the foundation of this house from above, also through a glass floor.
So right now we're in a cathedral that was built over the Apostle Peter's house, and you can see the people that are gathered around this square down here, and that's so they can look down through the glass floor and see Peter's house from above. We were outside earlier. We looked at it from underneath this building, and now you can stand on top and look down through the glass and see it from the top.
So our next stop took us to the ruins of the town of Magdala. Magdala was a prosperous fishing village on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, between Capernaum and Tiberias. This site was conquered and destroyed by the Romans in 67 AD and was scarcely settled in the following periods. Today it is an archaeological park. Magdala was developed as a fishing village and a center for fish trade, as it was on the crossroads next to the Sea of Galilee. Historical sources indicate it was especially known for its salted fish. And of historical value by the Christian faith, it was also the home to Mary Magdalene. Magdala is not mentioned by name in the New Testament, but the most devout female follower of Jesus was Mary Magdalene, which likely means Mary from Magdala. It is also quite likely that Jesus visited Magdala and preached in it, as he did in the synagogues of many of the towns and villages in the area of Galilee. In the Byzantine period, a church was said to have been built over the house of Mary Magdalene. Possible remains of this church were discovered in the 1970s, but to this day they are not open to the public. The most famous discovery made so far is a rare 1st century synagogue with a uniquely decorated large slab of limestone, which you're viewing now. Magdala today is a popular tourist attraction. The wealth of archaeological finds attests to the prosperity of the village in the time of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. So this is the place where the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water. But when the disciples saw him walking, They were terrified, and they said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it's you, then command me to come to you by water." And Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, and he walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind and the waves, he was afraid, and he began to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when he got out of the boat, the wind ceased, and those that were on the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, this is the Son of God." So we're on this boat, we're on the Sea of Galilee, and we're taking it all in, enjoying the views, enjoying each other's companies, and telling stories. And then the captain and the crew honor us Americans by the raising of our flag next to the Israeli flag. So after we got off the boat, we went to the Galilee Courtyard. There's a museum there, and in this museum there is a boat that was found, and we'll let Mondo tell you a little bit about this boat in the next clip.
So this is, we're in the northern part of the Sea of Galilee. This is a boat they discovered in the 80s during a drought time, which is from the 1st century. So this would be like the boats that the disciples would have been on 100%. This would be similar. You can see the size he'll talk about in the video, but it's a really cool find.
Okay, cool. So we watched the video about the discovery of this 1st century boat, and then we were able to get up close to it and take a few pictures. So the Sea of Galilee is a freshwater body of water that's 13 miles long and 7.5 miles wide at the widest point. So you can imagine being in a boat this small when the waves get up and the wind's blowing, and this sea can become pretty turbulent. It could be a scary event to be in a boat this size. So it was interesting to see a real example of a boat that was used in the 1st century, like the one Jesus and the disciples used.
All right, we're at the facility at the Jordan River, and we're gonna conduct some baptisms here. Watch some people get baptized today. And there's a place where people can get robes and a towel and go down to the river and be baptized, and we're gonna watch some of that.
So we are here at the Jordan River, just as the water exits the Sea of Galilee, which is very nice. And we're going to be doing about 15 to 20 baptisms, and which we're excited about. This is good times, right?
Amen.
Good times.
So we're in Tiberias, Israel. We're walking along the banks of Sea of Galilee, and we're on a mission to go get some ice cream. And they're having a debate on the sidewalk on the way. Somebody's got a spotlight on us. Is So this is what you do at night in Israel. So here's the ice cream. This is insane. Wow. So we paid for our ice cream, and after we sat down and had a little conversation with each other, we headed on back to the hotel to rest up to get ready for the next day. So I hope you enjoyed episode 2 of my Israel and Jordan trip. Remember, there's a link to episode 1 in the description below, and episode 3 will be out in a few days. Give us a like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time that I post a video. Be safe, God bless, and we'll see you next time on Brent Hyde Outdoors.